So, the sound, okay. So before I do my few minutes, I need to make two thank yous. One of them is to the Future of Text Lab, some of whom are here. Thank you for being constant. And the other thank you is to Dini and her lab and associated people. It's been absolutely an adventure. We wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for Dini's efforts on the ground. What we have been working on would look very different without Dini. So I just have to say thank you as many times as I possibly can. Right, so this section is supposed to be called Knowledge Work in XR. So it's really going to be about knowledge objects in XR, which kind of fits with what we just heard. It's similar language, and particularly knowledge object interactions. So I'll be using my software author as an exemplar piece of software for this, because it is a macOS native application, proprietary, all of those things, but it is XR connected, which is the whole point. And as of right now, it's featured on the front page of the macOS App Store, which is just, it is really nice timing, and if you don't believe me, please look. This is the kind of thing I don't mind not being trusted on. So, in that software, it can do all kinds of things, writing, of course, being core, but there's also a mapping function, and that's the only thing I want to talk to you guys about today, otherwise we'll be here until snack time. So a map in this context is a collection of knowledge objects sculpted into volumes. Knowledge object is a poetic term. What it really means we can talk about, but there is such a thing as a piece of knowledge. Volumes is a term that Rob came up with. It maps onto the Vision OS language, actually, which turned out to be a nice aside, because it sounds like a book in a boring sense, but of course it means a space, a volume as well, so that's kind of beautiful. I'm not the technical guy. I see myself as being the marketing guy, in a sense, trying to understand these things and simplifying it so people like me can understand them. So a collection of knowledge objects sculpted into volumes. And we've discussed many kinds of volumes today: sticky notes, spatial hypertext, concept map, blah, 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 all kinds of things. On one level, I really don't care. They are things in space, and they need to be controlled. Otherwise, it becomes like this. So this is actually an author, absolutely unintelligible mess, especially when you start seeing all the relationships. Right? I mean, it's kind of pretty, but pretty useless. So the approach we have is attributes to allow for demessing. I know it's not a word. Through easy arrangement and hiding and revealing things, right? So bottom left corner, choose to hide all people or do the keyboard shortcut, all the people are hidden. But the key is when you then immediately bring them back, they're all selected. It's really, really important to be able to select things based on a criteria. This is just a simple version. So now I've gone down here to the layout and said I want them all left aligned. So now I'll say I want them to be spaced. This is stuff you can do in Keynote and all kinds of graphical applications. The key thing here is we've assigned that these are people, so you can select them. So the simplest knowledge object in this way of thinking of the world is simply a note. So you select any text, click on the map thing, and that note is there. You move it around. Just a piece of text, maybe not useful. When you click to define, and this dialog is part of what I want to show you today, it has nothing inside it. It's empty. But it has this bit here. This is actually important because if you do a more connected note, you can export it as a glossary. If you say it's just a note, it will not be exported. You can choose that. But that means you can have all these messy things, but when you share it with someone else, you are not giving them a mess. Right, so this is maybe the key concept of what we've been looking at and working on, and that is the notion of icons. On a computer desktop, you have icons. Anybody can select, anybody who can use the computer can select icons, move them, rename them, all of that stuff. And Bruce, hello. So I'm so proud. Bruce here wrote the first Macintosh Finder. I love you. So that's also a lot of today has been the past and future. What works, what doesn't work. Fabian has been talking about documents. We should not throw away the notion of documents. I don't want to live in a database that's going to be deleted one day. So to have these things atomized is important. So if you have an icon, as I said, anyone can interact with it. You also have an insider or a content or whatever you want to call it. And this is where the magic can be. And by magic, I mean accessible and interactable data. Okay? It really is magic though. So that allows for things to happen, right? Such as interactions and connections, first of all, within the map. So example here, I select my name. Do I have to click? I select my name and choose define from the context menu. I make myself a person, that's important for the reasons you just saw, and then I write something really key about me. I'm a fan of Hamilton. You see, it now becomes bold. That's because there is a Hamilton defined. So when I now go to the map, that connection is just there. None of the others have connections, because in my name, it has the word Hamilton. That's it. Very simple. No AI, no intelligence, no cleverness at all. So here's the new thing, which the programmers has managed to make for today. So it's not available yet, except for the testing version. So we have Fabien sitting over there. Fabien is working on the Future Text Lab. He's written reports. So I select his name and the report, and I go to document and see if this comes up. So now I can connect to a document, which is really, I'm so excited about this dialogue, I can hardly contain myself. When Marc-Antoine was talking about frames, this is now a frame, right? Because click on that, you get the open dialog box. You can select anything you like on your local system. And then when you're in the map or elsewhere, double click on this again. You can then click and you get this to open. So that could be a picture, it could be a text document, but if it has another map, it's a nested map. But the key is, I'm not trying to sell you my software here. I'm trying to sell a way of working whereby I can have this, which all has vision metadata. We call it that. It's basically JSON, but we don't like the name. So that if you build an XR environment, you can just take this, right, and make much better interactions for specific things. So that's really, really the thing I want to hammer into your heads, that we think, and we're probably wrong, that outside icons, anybody should be able to see. Because you have the issue of proprietary stuff, software development, people making money. You know, I should be able to have a really sophisticated piece of software. If you have it, I give you the file, you open it. If you don't, you can't open it. But you should be able to have the iconic thing. Because what we're talking about is being able to move these things about. And as you saw largely with Fabien's demo earlier, having the files on the wall, the whole idea is, you can imagine an advertising pitch, you know, lots of things on the walls, you move them about. That is really, really powerful. In the olden days, we used to print these things. Now we have displays, we actually have less usable space. And then you snap your fingers, and because Fabien has layouts, it's a completely different thinking space. So if you're working on projects, you can have all, like those 4 columns, you can have all your project things, but when you're in that project, the entire room is covered by it. You do your work, you move things about, you author a knowledge sculpture that you can then give someone, and they can see all of that, independent of whether they have the software to open independent bits. By the way, I'm not timing myself, so someone else has to do that. I think that is such an important thing, right? Because often we talk about superficiality being bad. In this context, I think superficiality is vital. Because if you can't share the surface basic thing of something, then you're getting into locked-in environments. My dream is to sit in a cafe, argue passionately with someone, no, your point of view is absolutely rubbish, and then send over my configuration of that space so that other person can see, oh, I still don't agree with you, but at least I can more literally see where you're coming from. And it shouldn't matter what operating system we're on, what software we can run, as long as we're just doing it at that level. So this is the thing I showed you earlier, and I've animated boxes to illustrate the importance. This is really, really powerful, because you can put anything in there. Because as we've discussed, text can represent almost anything, right? That could be a full LLM in there, theoretically. It doesn't have to fit in that box, right? It could be a dictionary. It could be code. It could be anything you want. So all we're doing here, and with the, let's be honest, JSON kind of export, is we export thing basic tag, and in here, currently it's just definitions, but hopefully we can go much, much further. And this is encoded both in JSON and with, yes, Carl?
So if you wanted to give me a copy of like that notebook that you just showed us, that you were building, that you had a thing that pointed to a file in your local system, when you go to export that notebook or that layout or whatever you want to call it and give it to me, does the reference viewer look at local files on your machine, go collect those, and
the current notion of that is that I don't send you the file, right? I would do that. That would be a separate mechanism. So imagine, for instance, Mark and I have very similar libraries because we have similar interests, right? We can send each other these configurations, and if you choose to open, if you have the local file, great. If not, at least you can say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. Give me mechanisms to get it. So that means you can have tiny PDFs, you can have massive 3D files. To me, that's a separate thing. I'm interested in the knowledge object. If in a year or two, we come together and we cannot share knowledge object, I think that is a complete and utter failure. All these associated issues, I leave for more intelligent people down the line. So right, knowledge object and XR will be R, currently, we're doing it, is exported in PDF with Visual Meta. Visual Meta is just my PhD thing. At the end of a document, in an appendix, you say what the document is. You literally write out. And when I started doing this, I was expecting AI in 100 years and maybe a human coder in a year to deal with this. But it's in BibTeX format, meaning it is just this equals this equals this, very basic. So I put it into one of the AIs and I said, what metadata can you extract from this document? Gave me everything. Simply because the beginning says, and I didn't realize what a prompt was when I started. There were no prompts. So just the fact that in the document it says the following is blah, 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 it becomes a self-contained prompt. So that means it's usable. So it can be extracted as JSON or whatever, really important, or vision, as we call it. So the whole notion then is going from working on a laptop like this or whatever software you want, and then being able to go into an XR space. So as I said here, we're pretending this, I don't know, what do you think of the name? Is it ridiculous? Should we call it JSON or should we call it something else? We honestly don't know yet.
Looks nice.
Looks nice.
Vision's too close to Vision Pro, and I don't know,
That
JSON
could be.
seems to work.
The other thing is when JSON is replaced by something else in 5 years' time.
It's a JSON. Do you think JSON's going to be replaced by something?
Well, it tends to be the data formats for an over time. So much what you're doing here is, at the moment with JSON, as you said before, when we started doing the visual meta, it was using BibTeX-like notation, and so that's the BibTeX do JSON, and I would bet that it will be something else in 5 years. So the only about the name is I'm riffing on JSON now, it might just be something quite big.
Sure, Mark, that's absolutely fair enough. And the thing in the world that has changed since you and I started doing this together at Southampton, first of all, that whether it's JSON or whatever it's called, is what allows you to go from a traditional computer to what my friend calls the space goggles and back. Right? It is just to be able to share things and then to make this horrible mess more dimensional. When Brandel came into our community, just as I finished my PhD and said, by the way, I should look at XR, and we're finally ready to do that. He pointed out studies that if you have data in XR, how much more data can there be and be legible than if you view it flat? What was the order of magnitude?
It's at least 2. In terms of because the thing is, like, if you have 1,000 nodes, that's 33 by 33. It's a really dense graph, but if it's only 10 by 10 by 10. So if you can navigate like that, then you will think that all of the data has disappeared when in fact you're just swimming.
Right, yeah, thank you. And this is my final slide, and it's just illustrating that my software author is what I call a client to XR. I consider XR to be the new reality. Everything else is flattened. Sometimes you need it flattened, that's fine. So this is what Fabienne has, this is what Andrew has that I'll be showing in the back, and this is where hopefully you will be. The key, and what we've been working on so much this year, is really how to send the data around. It is so important. And Michael, I think it was you who talked about archival, what to do for archival reasons, be simple. That's what we're desperately trying to do. We're trying to be describing and simple. So then any system in the future can hopefully use it. Team, anything I forgot? No? Andrew, anything you want to add?
You are like 3 minutes over time.
Okay, Deanie, anything you want to add about how this connects to what we're
I
doing?
guess I was wondering where Andrew, the work Andrew's been doing for the past year, where that fits, because I see what's coming up, and what's been kind of in the works, spot stuff, but what about the years worth of work that Andrew's been doing? Is that?
Oh, that's represented here. That's that one, the big one on top. So the whole point is, I just bought a new Mac, it's super powerful, I'm so happy I'm a Mac nerd. I don't want to just be in headset land all the time, right? I think of the headset as being a thinking cap, so that's why it's important to share the data. So what Andrew has built in this spatialized reading environment is amazing. And the same data I have here, because it is now transmitted by JSON, that this works from reader to that environment, and also to what Fabian is doing, is the whole point of this. Because all of these are early experiments. All of these will be thrown away. The only thing that will be remaining are the lines, the data moving about. So we've got to make sure we keep the lines going. All right, thank you very much. Now there's tea, coffee, and demos at the back.